so I had to replace it. But the second time I got a virus, and that was with Windows, not 7. What was the one that Vista?
Vista.
Oh, you got a virus installing Vista?
No, I got it was like one of those weird pop-ups.
Not during install.
Yeah, not during install, but it totally screwed up the install.
You were visiting strange sites.
Yeah, something. I don't know. Something popped in, but it was a root rootkit, because it would reinstall itself after you cleaned it, right? And you reboot the machine. So I had to totally wipe the hard drive. But I always keep an image of the hard drive on another hard drive, usually in my computer, so I just imaged it back. But
another thing I want to mention, I had said that I was not impressed by Essentials support, and it did take 2 weeks, but I had a snafu with my order, and they did get around to fixing it, and it's fixed now. So I think they're trying.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them points for trying and succeeding. It just took a long time.
Yeah. I meant to ask about that.
I put a note in about it. Basically, what happened is my 360 camera I never got an option to order it. In the note that said my Essential phone was coming, it said, if you also pre-ordered a 360 camera, you'll get separate instructions, and I never got the instructions. So I sent him a note about it, and 11 days later, so not quite 2 weeks, they finally resolved it.
11 days, though. Oof.
Yeah, that's a long time.
May as well be the 70s getting 6 to 8 weeks delivery on something in a minute.
From Renata Galasso.
Yeah.
I ordered my Topps baseball cards.
Or anything I ordered out of a comic book, like any of those like goofball things in the back, like
the 3D glasses.
Yeah.
Or not the 3D, the X-ray glasses.
X-ray glasses. Those things were always 6 to 8 weeks.
Yep.
And it was okay. Like we seemed okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, that's the way everything was. So you're like, okay, I'll wait my 2 months. Yeah. Maybe it'll come early.
And when it came, it was a special day.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, oh, it finally came. Just
when that Renato Galasso long box showed up full of baseball cards, I would be very excited.
And all we had between then and the time it arrived was 3 channels of TV and a batting.
You only got 3 channels?
Well, there was the indie channel. He's 3 network channels.
3 networks.
Yeah.
3 networks, a local indie, and PBS.
Right.
We had 3 local when I was going to 3 network, 1 PBS, and then 5 UHF channels.
Oh wow. We had 1 VHF indie and 1 UHF indie. That was it. Actually, you know what? I take that back. There was a Mount Vernon station.
Oh, and actually, no, wait. We had KTVU back then. Wasn't affiliated with Fox. It was an independent.
Time to begin.
All right. I need control.
You have it. I remembered. All right, here we go. 3, 2.
What's that? You want to give back some value for the value you get out of Daily Tech News Show? No problem. Just head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support to find out how.
This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, September 20th, 2017. I'm Tom Merritt, and joining me today, Mr. Scott Johnson. How are you, sir?
Fine. Wednesdays are like a comfortable shoe, but sometimes on the wrong foot. No, that's not true. It's all nice, and it feels great to be here. Thank you for having me, as always.
Are Wednesdays a slip-on or a lace-up?
Oh, good. You know what? Every day is a slip-on for me, so I kind of gotten that as I've gotten older. I have a feeling that one day you'll just be like a sock for me. So,
yeah. Wow, flip-flops. We'll just keep changing what we think about things. Someone who does not think metaphors about shoes are amusing is our producer, Roger Chang.
Oh. Hello, I'm amusing shoes.
Or maybe he does. Let's start with a few tech things you should know. Apple told The Verge that the company is investigating a fix for the reported LTE connectivity issues in review units of the Apple Watch Series 3. The actual orders haven't started shipping yet, or if they have, they won't arrive until Friday. Apple blames the issue on the watch trying to join unauthenticated Wi-Fi networks when you're out and about. I don't know why it's trying to join networks it can't, but when it does, it can't get LTE.
No, weird. That seems like a problem, and they probably should hopefully fix that. I have one coming, so I'd like that not to be a thing. Anyway, Google and Motorola announced that the Moto X4 will be the first Android One phone to come to Google's Project Fi. Android One devices are close in stock to Android with updates handled by Google. So if you're looking for quicker updates, the Moto X4 might be your animal.
Yeah, there's no interface enhancements or anything. Just, when they say close to stock, there's a couple of differences in the way Android One happens because of developing countries and stuff like that. But yeah. Pre-orders opened Wednesday for the Xbox One X, which will ship November 7th worldwide. Xbox One X can handle the 4K resolution graphics and 60 frames per second, if you recall.
Yeah, and I have things to say about that. I'll save it for another show. Toshiba announced it has agreed to sell its semiconductor business to Bain Capital. Bain was quoted as saying, "Your punishment will be more severe." Toshiba is the number 2 producer of NAD memory chips, and that's
a typo.
So I guess Toshiba says goodbye to their long run.
Western Digital is partners with Toshiba, and they've been fighting really hard to buy this chip unit from Toshiba. They are not happy. They are not commenting, but they are not happy. Yeah. Here's some other top stories. The Financial Times reports Amazon's working on smart glasses with integrated Amazon Voice services. It's a little weird how much info the FT has. The glasses are reportedly unobtrusive, so they don't have a camera or a display or anything. They use bone conduction for audio out and presumably for audio in. So, you know, they would tether to a smartphone, so you'd have to have a phone connected that had the Amazon Voice Services app. Sources also say Amazon is developing a home security camera system, which could send video to other Amazon Echo products. Both devices could reportedly be launched by the end of the year.
I am personally very excited about the latter of those two things. A system,
the security camera system, really.
Yeah, because I find myself, I don't know, every other week, just kind of looking at what's available these days. Everything from those like full solution things you get at Costco that aren't actually very good to more expensive options from Nest and other manufacturers.
Well, we've got a Nest announcement for you, like a full-on security system coming later in the show here.
I can't wait to pay exorbitant amounts of money for it as well, because that's been my biggest problem. I guess I just have this sense that because Amazon's interested in supporting the Echo ecosystem or the ecosystem, that they would make it a more affordable option that would be extremely well tied into the whole Echo.
All right, well, hold that thought till we get to the Nest thing, because that's their premiere announcement today. But what do you think of these glasses?
Okay, so on to the glasses. Sure, why not? Call them the Echo Eye, though, if you're going to give them a name. Because what else are you going to do, right?
These things got to be cheap, because they're just going to talk to me, and I'm going to talk to them and look crazy. But it's kind of genius, because they're just going to look like glasses. Nobody's going to know I have something weird on my face. Nobody's going to be worried about me surreptitiously filming them. But I get an easy way to do talking to her, Alexa. And I won't have to look like I've got some kind of strange ornamental object sticking out of my ears like I do with the AirPods when I try to talk to Siri.
Well, here's the weird bit, though. I'm trying to think of outside the house, the functionality. So let's say you're on the bus or in a car or wherever you are, and you start to talk to your glasses, which then in turn talks to your Echo branded devices at home.
Well, I don't think it has to do that. From what I get on the report, it just talks to the app on your phone.
Okay, so so there you go. Then what are my use cases? Let's say one of them is music.
What's the weather? What's next on my calendar? Add this to my shopping list.
I feel like I just
remind me to do something.
Yeah, it's not enough. If there's no HUD or Google Glass type integration like that, I don't know that this interests me all that much. It seems a little gimmicky and weird. Not even a camera on this thing that we know.
No, that's the brilliance.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see. And also, if it's super cheap, then maybe none of this matters, and it'd be worth trying just to try it. If it's $30,
you know what it's going to be? No, actually, Ken from Chicago nailed it. It's going to show you the cost of objects you see. And then you're going to be able to say, buy that on Amazon, what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, you're probably right. Something like that is definitely coming down the road. HTC will halt trading of its stock Thursday. And this is due to an impending announcement. HTC has been working with an advisor to investigate selling its handset and virtual reality businesses. Bloomberg sources say Google is close to acquiring assets from HTC. Apple Daily reported Wednesday that Google could buy HTC mobile phone original design operations. That's very interesting to me, because we have never really heard how the Vive did for them.
Yeah.
And whether or not a Vive 2 is on its way, or they were going to partner in such a strong way that they have in the past with Valve on that front. My guessing is those numbers for anyone, including Oculus, have not been what everybody would like, despite the fact that we are early in the VR cycle. So this is the closest we've come to seeing how maybe HTC felt about the VR stuff, let alone handset stuff. But I don't know. What's your take on that? Do you think we're gonna?
I think after tomorrow's announcement, we'll know a lot more. Yeah. A lot of people have speculated that the Vive is actually doing okay, and so they want to separate it off. The stockholders are like, sell that off to somebody who can make sure that that doesn't fail, and then cash out on the rest of your business for parts. Because while you have a very good phone manufacturing business and design business, you're not making any money off of it. So the smart money out there is that Google is going to buy the handset division, and Vive will either spin off on its own, or there'll be another buyer, maybe one of those equity organizations will buy the Vive as a separate business. BBC was speculating that Google would buy the Vive business and roll it into Daydream. And that would make more sense than Google going and buying another manufacturer after they bought Motorola and then sold them back off again. Because remember, a big part of Motorola was buying patents, and that's not what's going on with HTC. I think Apple Daily might be onto what happens. If Google buys just the original design operations and not the manufacturing, and they find another partner, I don't know, maybe if Foxconn wants to buy the rest of it or something, I don't know. Foxconn has ambitions of getting more into making its own phones than just making them for other people. The design going to Google would make sense. They've got a design operation, and bringing in the HTC folks would supercharge that when they design things like the Pixel in the future. They probably don't want to own the manufacturer, but if they know it's going to go to somebody reliable, they might continue to do business with whoever buys the rest of HTC. And then the Vive business could just spin off on its own, or again, be bought by somebody else.
Well, to throw a little bit of support behind the idea that they're interested in the VR side of this, it is notable, whether this doesn't really necessarily say anything for certain, but it is notable that Google specifically has been very supportive of the Vive, making some of its most popular creation tools, and their version of Google Earth for that thing is downright incredible. So it's entirely possible that they're looking at that platform as one they already liked and were behind and already sort of developed for and that sort of thing. And it would make a lot of sense and not let it sit out there and just get scooped up by, I don't know, Facebook, who could roll it into what they're doing. And then we only have one VR
consolidation
manufacturer, which is not something I think any of us want. We'd like this competition. So I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place on this. I kind of hope it's the VR thing, and I want to see what they do with it, if it is.
I think it's going to be design. We're going to see a more complicated transaction here than we thought. I'm not going to be shocked if Google does buy HTC's handset business entirely. It may just be simpler to do that, and then they could spin off the handset parts they don't want later, like they did with Motorola. That could make sense too. There's a pattern for that with Motorola. And it'll be confusing to some, but over time it'll make sense. And I think they are after the design either way. I'd be a little surprised if they buy Vive, unless they just buy the whole thing at once and just swallow it all.
You think that the only other thing I thought of here is, the Pixel phone is an HTC design, right?
It's LG and HTC are making the two different models. Yeah,
so those are the two different models. That lends a lot of credence to what you're saying, that if they own the design side of it, this puts them closer to being Google truly making a flagship phone from the inside out without too much partnering. And that's interesting. That's more of an Apple thing, but it's definitely something we've seen them move toward. Mm-hmm. And that can bleed into other products like, their Chromebook stuff and everything else. So yeah, who knows? But it's whenever somebody halts trading on their stock to make a deal like this, people should pay attention.
There's gonna be a deal. Well, it may not be with Google, but all the sources pretty much agree it is in some part anyway. But there's going to be an announcement. They according to VentureBeat, they called an all hands meeting and everything. So there is going to be a big change at HTC tomorrow. That we know for sure.
Yep.
Nest announced several new products, starting with a home security line, Scott, called Nest Secure. It's made up of multiple components. Nest Guard is your hub. It has a keypad, and it sits by your front door. And it connects with Nest Detect modules that you put throughout the home at your other doorways, basically. Put it on Windows too. Nest Guard can be armed and disarmed from the keypad on the device or by app, or with something called Nest Tags. They're little NFC tags. And those are for, you can give them to the kids or the babysitter. A starter system with a guard, 2 detects, and 2 tags costs $499. Coming this November to the U.S. with Canada and Europe to follow. You can also tie it into a security service from Moni. They can give us a price on that. You can buy backup cellular data in case your Wi-Fi goes out for $5 a month. And you can even add a door lock from Yale called the Nest Plus Yale. And that doesn't have a price or release date yet either. But the basic system, $499, Scott.
Okay, that's not bad. I mean, it's going to be more than like I was talking about with the Costco specials they put up on those shelves. I really hate those things. They're terrible. They're kludgy. The app service or the app support on those things are really, really bad. I love what Nest does. I like their interfaces. I like their integration. I really like Nest. I thought you were going to tell me, well, I mean, I jumped in and saw the price, but if I was going to guess before I saw this information, I was going to think $1,000. That felt like it was in line with sort of Nest's price tags. $499 is actually probably doable, and that's a fair amount of stuff for a starter kit. So that may be my next thing. And Nest, integrates nicely with Echo.
Is it your Nest thing?
Yeah. Got it. Nailed it. But yeah, I want something soon. I've kind of been doing this weird mix of things. I have an old Samsung camera down here, and I have another weird one upstairs, and one that goes out the front door. And the apps I use look like they were made in 2009, and like it's kind of a problem. So, in fact, I didn't even tested iOS 11 on that app. I'm guessing I may have killed it, given the 64-bit jump. But anyway, yes, what you've said to me sounds doable. Let's get some reviews in. Let's see how it worked out. This might be the big thing I do.
Nest also kind of storming back and saying, hey, we didn't die. We're still making things. Announcing the Nest Cam IQ Outdoor, just an outdoor version of the Nest Cam IQ. That's for pre-order now, $349 in Canada and the U.S., and it'll ship to Canada, the U.S., and Europe later this year. Not sure when Europe gets its pre-orders. And the Nest Hello, which is kind of like its Ring doorbell competitor. It's a video doorbell. That isn't coming until Q1 2018. They don't have a price on that yet.
Very interesting. Well, Swiss Post is expanding its UAV delivery service in partnership with logistics company Matternet. Always love that name. 2 hospitals in Lugano, Switzerland, had previously tested Matternet system to deliver lab samples. The company received approval in March to operate over densely populated areas, which is a big hurdle for a lot of these places. Anyway, Matternet showed off a new docking station that can be installed on rooftops or the ground to receive packages from these drones. Matternet plans to establish regular service in 2018. Matternet quadcopters are about 2 square meters and can carry 2 kilograms and fly 20 kilometers. That is a beast of a quadcopter.
It's especially when it's docked on its big old base there, where the packages come in and out. This is being used mostly by hospitals right now, and that's probably going to be what it's used for when it launches in early 2018. But Matternet says they would like to expand it to grocery stores and stuff like that. They are not the first to do this. Zipline, which operates in Rwanda and is expanding to Tanzania, has been doing this a lot longer. But it is a more rural area that they operate over in Rwanda and Tanzania. So this, Matternet's making a big deal. We're the first ever over a densely populated area. But, getting approval to do that is, like Scott said, that's something unusual. So, I mean, I love these stories because people have been saying after Zipline launched in Rwanda, drone delivery will never happen. And I'm like, it's been happening. You just think it's not happening because you watched Amazon do a presser where they pretended like they had a product before they do. I'm not doubting Amazon will have a product eventually. These other companies have been beating people to the punch. And these aren't big companies. This isn't Google. This isn't Facebook. This isn't the established, big 5. These are small companies who are actually innovating and actually creating a useful product for medical samples in places that need them.
Yeah, I think it's great. You're also going to I don't know. I think the next 2-3 years are going to be a lot of companies claiming firsts in this area.
Yeah, for sure.
Incremental firsts, which are like asterisks or footnotes about, well, it's a densely populated area. That makes us first. Oh, really? Well, we're the first to take it to mountaintop thing or whatever. Like it's
that would be Matternet's Lugano thing was over mountains. So maybe it'll be the first flatland one. Will be.
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, you're gonna hear a lot of that. It's gonna come out of not just these kind of companies and these kinds of services. You're gonna hear it from automated vehicle companies, and everyone's gonna be first for the next little while. So I'm getting prepared for that now, so it doesn't annoy me too much because it's gonna drive me slightly nuts to hear everybody basically land grabbing, planting their flag and saying we were here first, when really this is, you know, a long process.
Well, it's one of the things I try to do on Daily Tech News Show is identify these things and talk about them early so that we get that kind of perspective, so that when Amazon does launch their service and pretends like they're the first ever, you all know, like, well, okay, your service may be impressive, but we know Matternet and we know Zipline, and, you know, there's a long history here. One of the things that gives me that feeling is that I've been covering this for so long on Tech News Today and Buzz Out Loud that other stories are starting to wrap up that I've been following. For instance, the RIA announced that more than 30 million people pay for subscription music in the U.S. Revenue is up 48% to $2.5 billion in the first half of the year. Streaming, which they used to rail against, accounts for 62% of music revenue. Physical sales are flat, not falling. CD sales fell 3%. That's not that much. Vinyl sales picked them up, rising 3%. Digital downloads did decline. People are switching to streaming. Overall retail sales are up 17%. Wholesale shipments up 14.6%. So, of course, you might imagine, well, RIAA, since Napster in 1999, has been claiming about declining revenues, but now that they're back and people are paying for music, they're just happy, right? They're not blaming anything, right, Scott?
Right. Of course, they haven't been able to nitpick or find a corner somewhere where they can find a serious reason to complain, have they?
Except YouTube. In their press with all this good news, they're still picking on YouTube. Because they just don't like the deal they have with YouTube. So they have graphs and charts explaining how YouTube rips them off. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, YouTube has said this, like, well, we think our deal is fine. We think we pay you enough. But if you don't like it, then remove your music from the service. And while I don't know whether YouTube's paying them enough or not, I mean, I think that the music companies could try removing their music from YouTube. I think they understand that if they do that, they hurt themselves more than if they don't. So it's just a matter of negotiation. And if Google and YouTube are in a stronger position to negotiate, then yeah, you're not going to get as good of a deal out of them.
That is some strange saber rattling, and it always has felt that way for me. This is also something we're seeing with certain video game companies getting up the nerve to do takedown notices of their game content, especially story-driven, smaller budget games, because a lot of people, in their view, are watching influencers play it, but not actually buying the game, that it's actually not driving them toward it. And yet they don't issue the takedowns. Some recently have over other issues like the PewDiePie mess and all that, but for the most part, they don't do it. Well, why? Because they know, just like these music executives know, that having their music up on YouTube, having the Vivo channel thrive and survive and be the new MTV for a whole new generation of kids sells music. Whether they like it or not, these deals they've made are better than them not having their music there. So they can do that all they want. At the end of the day, they're not going to pull it. Of course they're freaking not going to pull it.
I mean, you could argue that maybe Google has a monopolistic hold, but I don't think it's a very good argument. Google has an outsized hold over things, certainly on music videos. So maybe there's an unfair advantage there for them.
Maybe.
But otherwise, it's just like, hey, that's the way it goes. If you can't live without something, then you have to pay less for it. You have to be willing to pay less for it. And if you want to get paid more for it, then, call their bluff. I don't know.
It also feeds into other parts of the industry. When I hear something this has happened before. Your wife has sent me a video before and said, oh my gosh, you'll probably love this. This sounds like your kind of music. And when I got it, I went, oh, it totally does. Went out and bought the album on, I think, Amazon. I might have been the iTunes. I don't know. I might now get it on one of the streaming services I pay a streaming amount for, whether it be YouTube, Apple Music, or whoever. So it spreads around. It isn't just this weird vacuum of just YouTube, and that's where everyone gets everything, and we're not getting a good deal there. It's just such weird myopic thinking and tunnel vision. So,
I don't think it's myopic or tunnel vision. I think it's negotiating. I think the RIA knows, like, well, we need to find leverage. Let's make people think YouTube's being unfair to us, the poor small music industry, and then maybe the pressure will get on Google because people will stop using YouTube for videos or something. I don't know. They're just trying to put pressure, and that's fair too. It's fair for them to do that.
Sure. I just don't like it because that kind of goes to my entire point, which is it's either myopic thinking or they're negotiating.
Yeah.
Call it what it is and negotiate.
Yeah.
a better deal. You don't have to make us all go, oh yeah, man, look at YouTube ripping. I mean, I don't know, whatever. It's like politics or anything else. Everybody spins it the way they want to spin it, but it gets tiring. And I'm telling you right now, the movie industry is about to do this, and they're going to get down our throats in ways you're not used to, because they had a terrible summer. They look like they might, if projections hold true, have a bad winter at the box office. And then they're going to go, well, shoot, we really haven't worked that hard to be ready for this switch, for this change in consumption and where people get what they get. And when that happens, it's going to be everyone's fault but theirs, and I'm bracing for it.
No, I think you're absolutely right. We're going to be seeing a lot of PSAs when you go to the theater about how you shouldn't do this or that instead of going to the movies. We will see. Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. It's available as a podcast and on the Anchor app at anchor.fm. We are still having trouble with our feed for the Amazon Echo, and I apologize to the Amazon Echo users if you can even hear me, because there was a server that got taken down, and then when we switched the script, there was a problem with the script, but we are on it. We are going to fix it, and we will get it back. But thank you for your patience with us on that. And that is a look at the top stories. Okie doke. Blizzard Overwatch League debuts January 10th. Pre-season starts December 6th in Blizzard Arena in Burbank, California. Beautiful downtown Burbank. Capacity 450. It's kind of a big auditorium is what it is. It's not really an arena. But it's going to be fun to watch, and I might go over there and see some Hearthstone stuff that they're doing in October. The Overwatch League runs until June. They have playoffs in July, and they've got 12 teams. So this is where Blizzard is trying something different. Instead of just having teams, which that's not new, eSports have had teams and leagues for a long time, they're putting them in locations. They're trying to get you to be partisan based on your locale. So they've got one in San Francisco. NRG eSports is doing that one. Misfits Gaming is doing one in Miami, Orlando. The COO of the New York Mets baseball team is doing one in New York. Robert Kraft from the New England Patriots has one in Boston. The big NetEase folks, they're the partners with Blizzard, are doing one in Shanghai. This is the International League. Kevin Child's Kabam doing one in Seoul. Cloud9's got one in London. Comcast Spectator, which owns the Philadelphia Flyers hockey team, doing one in Philadelphia. Optic Gaming, which happens to be led by the Texas Rangers co-owner Neil Liebman. That's a baseball team in Dallas, but Optic Gaming is putting one in Houston. Dallas does have a team, though. That's run by Team Envy. The owner of the LA Rams, Stan Kroenke, and his son Josh Kroenke, who's the owner of the Denver Nuggets. They one or both of them own the Colorado Avalanche as well. They're doing one in LA, and the CEO of Immortals is doing a second one in LA. So now I have to decide which one I'm going to throw my support behind. Stan Kroenke was not very nice to the Rams in St. Louis. I'll probably go for the Immortals one. But we got 12 teams. We got regional rivalries, and we've got them playing Overwatch. Scott, yeah. I am attracted to this because I am obsessed with leagues and standings and logos and sports and stuff like that. Is this going to play with anybody else?
Oh yeah, I think that. Well, I mean, they're banking on that, and when I say banking, I mean it. If you want to start a franchise in this league, you are looking at $20 million to get in. That's the ticket in, and all the names you just mentioned are people with that kind of cash. They've all seen value in this. I actually think that price is a little undervalued right now, and it will only go up. But I'm also a little biased as well. I think Overwatch is an incredible game. I play it. I love it. And I love to watch it played competitively. And Blizzard is going all in on this. Now, as much as that stadium, or I shouldn't call it a stadium, that location, their arena in
Arena. I think arena, while a stretch, is appropriate.
Sure. And they call it arena, but what they mean more is like it's an arena to fight in. It's an attempt on a couple of levels to be, in one way, it's kind of a loss leader. I don't know what it's costing them to do it. It's pennies for the kind of revenue they do, but it's not so much about how it only holds 450 people. It's about it being a kind of state-of-the-art point of broadcast and stream for everything that they do, and it won't be just Overwatch. It will be Heroes of the Storm. It'll be Hearthstone, even World of Warcraft PvP tournaments. And don't forget StarCraft and everything else that they may have down the pike. So it's a real opportunity for them to own it. That's what Blizzard does best. They don't like to have things out of their own control. They like to bring it in and have purview over all aspects of what they do with that company. And Activision has been happy to let them do that. It's meant, Blizzard's been one of, if not the most successful video game company of all time. All of that being said, Overwatch to become a mainstream thing is more on its way of doing that than most games that have made this attempt before. League of Legends has an enormous following. 100 million players play that game. That is huge. Counter-Strike is a huge player base. Dota 2, enormous player base. Even StarCraft and other Blizzard properties. The difference is households don't know the name League of Legends. They know their kids know the name, and they know that he locks up in his room all day and plays that game, but it's not approachable to your average person. What Blizzard has always been good at is becoming kind of a Disney of video games, in that their characters are recognizable, their stories are known, and their names are out there. And everybody knows when you say World of Warcraft what that is. Right now, everybody on consoles and PCs knows what Overwatch is. It is the standing champion of class-based shooters, and nothing has come close since it launched a couple of years ago. So they have a huge advantage that way, but they are making, let's not make any mistake about this, they are making an enormous bet that this is going to grow from there and on, and that video games as a competitive spectator sport will continue to grow at a rate that is sustainable for a bunch of teams who want an investment. They want to get money back on their investment of $20 million.
And one of the things they have to do, I think, is bring in people who otherwise wouldn't watch, right? People who love watching Overwatch on Twitch right now are likely to watch this. No matter how they constructed it, they'd be like, I'm going to check out that Overwatch League. I want to see what they do with it. So how do you get the folks who are into watching? I mean, not everybody who watches sports also watches eSports, but there is a lot of crossover. And some people who are like, yeah, I like watching eSports, but I don't know Overwatch. I don't play it. You bring in the regionalism. You make it familiar so that those folks are like, oh, okay, so I've got a team to cheer for because I live in London and I can cheer for my London team, and all of England will, maybe parts of Scotland and Wales too. Who knows? We'll unite behind Cloud9's London team. Sure. Do you think that'll work? Do you think that'll bring in enough?
Actually, this is the other missing link. This is something you don't have in the other successful esports. I'll go back to League of Legends as an example. They're an extremely successful game, an esports company. However, there's a certain point where it just sort of stops, and you usually root for teams that are across the world. You're rooting for a Korean team or a European team or something. There's no real connection if you live in LA to any of those teams, except maybe one of the players ends up on a team and maybe he's from LA or something like that. But this is them saying, well, what do we know works in sports for hundreds of years? And that is tying a team to a community, whether that's a state, a city, a region, whatever, that people will get behind that. Then what follows is you go out at night on a Friday night to a sports bar, and that sports bar is now carrying on a great big screen the Overwatch finals for that weekend. And you're watching those semis in there with your friends, and you're drinking and you're having a good time. And suddenly you've got camaraderie and people who are with you, and then the one friend who hates your team and roots for everyone else. So there's rivalry there. Like, all of those things are a little intangible and kind of chaotic, but I think they're key elements here to make any of this work. And I think it's the same as think about football this way. People get super stoked about the Super Bowl or about the playoffs. Rest of the season, or even in baseball, they don't care so much about regular season. It kind of just comes and it goes and whatever. There's the hardcores, but then there are the ones that are just sort of casually there and looking for the big game at the end. This will also attract that. Overwatch has one other advantage that I should mention, even over its other games, and that is that it's very uncomplicated. Even Hearthstone is about knowing what cards, what decks, how they react with each other, what to pull, when you can pull it. Plus, there's randomness in that makes it more like a chess game. But when you talk about Overwatch, it's shoot that team, make them more dead than you are, get the objective done that you have to do. It's very simple.
Easy to play, hard to master.
There you go. And so to describe it and play it, way easier. And esports has already evolved into talking like sports. I mean, those guys get up, a couple of guys in suits, sometimes a third commentator, and they talk like they're watching sports. People already know that cadence. They feel it, and it feels normal to them. So if there was ever a time, let's put it this way, I'm not going to ensure success for them or say that any of this will be a failure, because I don't believe one and I can't guarantee the other. But this is the closest we've been to figuring it out. And I think that they're going to go further than just about anybody else. We will look back on these early days of Overwatch League and other things with Blizzard and go, all right, there's the standard by which everything sort of grew from there. At least that's my hope. And again, I'm biased. I love everything Blizzard does, so it's hard for me to not be that way. But I'm very excited about all of this happening this year.
Just a few logistical questions you might have. The playoffs are all going to be happening in Blizzard Arena in Burbank, so you won't be traveling to Seoul and then back to London and then to Boston. It's not in that way like regular sports. They've been kind of vague about how they're going to handle it in the regular season. I think there will be some travel and people being able to play in their home locations, but I think a lot of that has yet to be finalized. But this is mostly about your teams playing on the screen and watching it, watching a cast of it. I tell you, the final thought I have on this, Scott, I think they should come up with the ability for players in the league to have their own characters in Overwatch, right? Because, and maybe they're just skinned, but if I see a character from Overwatch, I'm going to be cheering for that character, and then I'm going to say, oh, well, the opposite team has that same character. I mean, right. I think it'd be kind of cool if they could skin them so that your characters didn't look the same as mine.
I think that's not only possible, I actually think it's probable, and here's what I think they're going to do. They did this a little bit with the Heroes of the Storm championships. When a team would win that year, everybody at home, because we watched some of it on Twitch or whatever, they have API integration with Twitch, and it would know that in our game client. We were all given a new mount. In that game, it has mount you can ride around on. And they were banners, and on the banners, or the symbols you would stand on, would be the logo of the winner of the previous event. So it would be Cloud9, or it would be whoever. And that was a really cool thing. They could go one step further, though, and in Overwatch especially, skin everybody as those teams. I don't think you're ever going to get characters based on players. That is not going to ever happen. The team, it's just not the way Blizzard works. But what they will do is, I could see Cloud9 fighting through their entire run in their colors, in their stripes, in their logos. Everybody will be wearing, just like you'd see in a regular sports match out on the pitch. Everybody's going to look like they belong to that team, and same with the opposing team. That wouldn't shock me, nor would that be all that hard.
I just think it's weird if you're like cheering for Tracer, right? Because you're seeing Tracer, and then the other team suddenly has Tracer, and you're like, oh, but I have all these feelings positive for my Tracer. Like, so yeah.
This is interesting you say that, because that is one of the disconnects, I think, with real sports versus sort of virtual sports, and that is that in sports, you're rooting for the player who is the quarterback, and you're rooting for the guy, and his name is Brad or whatever. In eSports, you've got a Tracer on this team and a Tracer on that team, but who you're really rooting for is the skilled hands of the dude or girl playing Tracer, and that is different, right? Like, it is different. So I don't think you're ever going to see these teams as characters. I mean, they could go as far as like mapping their faces on Tracer so that there was one distinction or something, but I don't think they ever do it. The character and story adherence and all that stuff also really matter to Blizzard, and I think they want to keep the integrity of the game to whatever its design principles are, and never really break those for things like this. But I could see more team-friendly sort of things happening, like, again, jerseys, virtual jerseys, basically.
Yeah.
Which are really cool. I would be totally into Roadhog running around with a big blue jersey and his belly hanging out, and freaking Soldier 76 with a big old Cloud9 symbol on his back or whatever. Like, there are possibilities here that they haven't quite done yet that they totally could. But you bring up a really good point. I think there's a lot of those points that we as hardcore gamers forget that the average viewer is going to have in their head, and they're going to have to address those for sure.
All right, quick message before we're out of here. Hello, Tom, and insert today's other hello, Tom and Scott. I posted this in a Patreon comment, but I thought a little behind-the-scenes information from the EFF EME W3C story might be helpful if it comes up again. I don't think it needs to come up again. This is an excellent perspective from the other side. I mean, we talked about the EFF's open letter yesterday, but we really didn't have a whole lot of statements from the people who voted for the encrypted media extension. So we've got this wonderful letter from Alistair, who says, there were a couple of misapprehensions from Tom and Patrick. It would be useful to account for next time. I don't speak for the W3C, My company is a member to work on accessibility standards and guidelines. I'm an AC rep, so was privy to some of the behind-the-scenes discussions, but everything I say will be publicly known or available. So this is not him speaking on behalf of anybody or even saying anything that isn't known. First, the W3C is a membership organization. It employs less than 100 people, and it does not have any patents of its own. Companies join to work on the web standards. The W3C is essentially a host, like a restaurant, set up for people to come and discuss particular topics. It does the admin and creates the structure for that work. So when I talked about patents yesterday, I may not have been clear. Those patents are from members of the organization. They're not actually held by the W3C. That's a good point. Due to that setup, the W3C cannot commit to any legal indemnity or patent use because they would not be the organization to do that. The members could, but so could the content rights holders for EME-related legal suits, which is far more likely. In order for the covenant proposed by the EFF to be accepted, all organizations in the W3C would have to accept it, especially those working on EME, like Microsoft, Google, and Netflix. There were some attempts to agree it, but they fell apart pretty quickly, with both sides saying the other wasn't serious about it. If those organizations don't accept it, the W3C cannot require them to abide by it. What could happen is that the W3C does not publish the EME spec so that it is actually what they vote was about, whether to publish it or not. There are some pretty good reasons why such a covenant would be very difficult to create. The biggest is that any backdoor to an encryption standard is a security hole that needs to be patched, so you can't have selective DRM bypassing. As someone who's against DRM on principle and works in accessibility, it might surprise you to know I voted for EME to be published. The reason was very simple. Browsers were going to implement EME or something like it, and I'd rather it went through the W3C process and got standardized because accessibility for people would be in a better place. The EFF leaving the W3C is not a big deal except for the publicity it generates. Now, that's Alistair's opinion. They only joined the W3C when EME was proposed, essentially to do everything possible to block EME, so with that spec published, there's nothing for them left to do. There's no more work on EME proposed, so there's nothing new to object to. I'm a big fan of Cory Doctorow's work in general, and I had 2 email conversations with him about this when he was campaigning for votes, and based on that, I think he'd do anything possible to notch a possible win against DRM. In this case, the W3C was just a collateral damage. My perspective is pragmatic. Bottom line is that on an open platform, you can't ban something that the content owners require and most of the public want to use. Given that browsers could see companies like Sky in the UK implementing their own apps instead of going through the browsers, they were going to implement DRM. Having gone through the process at the W3C, the accessibility, security, and privacy aspects are much better than they would have been. DRM is still a problem for all the reasons people know, but at least with EME, it is a more constrained problem with a standard interface. And I think this is a good representation of what Tim Berners-Lee, who was for the encrypted media extension, was saying was, look, it's going to happen anyway. We should make sure it happens in a way that's standards compliant and accessible. And people like Cory Doctorow are saying, we're enabling bad laws to be carried out through the W3C, and we object to that.
Yeah. Can I just, I know this seems like I shouldn't have to even say it, but man, your listeners, they know things about things. You know? I
know. No, it's great. And I really appreciate Alistair sharing that that side of the argument with us.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I have not stayed super up on this thing or stayed all that close to it, but what a pragmatic discussion that this particular argument is. I heard part of your discussion with Patrick, and some of it honestly went over my head because I don't exactly understand where the different positions are on the standards. But the idea that this is more, not a club, but this is an organization of people who are joining that club to then make joint decisions together, and then having one of them leave the clubs, they don't like the way things are being handled for whatever reason, in this case, this particular thing, that just sounds like business as usual if that's truly what the organization is.
Mm-hmm.
People are leaving by the droves and saying, I'm out, my membership's revoked, I don't want to have anything to do with this organization the way that the W3C did, then maybe there's something more systemic, but maybe it's working as intended. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a good perspective. And that is it for this show. Thank you to everybody. This is what the show is about to me, is helping each other understand things. And I'm just the W3C. I'm just the ringleader, opening up the restaurant for all of us to come and exchange these ideas. So thank you, Scott Johnson, for eating with us.
Well, no problem. I've left a big tip. My service is great. Thank you for having me as always. Hey, you mentioned the Anchor app earlier, and I never tell anybody on this show, but I have a video game show that I do every day called Video Games Daily. It appears on anchor.fm/Video Games Daily, as well as the Anchor app, of course, and also on Echo and Google Home devices. Thankfully, or for whatever reason, I got lucky and I didn't have that problem when the server thing got switched. So that's all still working as far as I know. But do check it out if you'd like a daily dose of what's going on in the video games, or a daily deuce. Why not? Check it out over there at anchor.fm/Video Games Daily. And for everything else, follow me on Twitter at Scott Johnson.
Huge thanks to everybody who supports us on Patreon at patreon.com/DTNS. It is, of course, the main way we fund things. You can also donate to us through PayPal if that is more appealing to you. You can find all the ways to support the show at dailytechnewsshow.com/support. And because of you, because you found value in the show, we're able to do some new things, including DTNS Labs, a monthly roundtable show, and bring Sarah Lane on the show as a co-host. She'll be on the show on Friday, and then she'll start as a regular on October 2nd. So thank you for that. Patreon.com/DTNS. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Justin Robert Young talking about why tech is hated suddenly. We'll talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
There you go.
Good show.
Nailed it.
That Overwatch talk ended up being more substantive than I even thought.
Yeah, I mean,
that was good.
We were able to reach back a little bit into the other stories that kind of are connected to this, like the arena and everything else, but also just get to the basics of this is overwhelming investment on Blizzard's part and on the part of those who are trusting them. And to me, that's very significant. So to be able to talk about that in more detail is really fun.
BioCow wrote, people hate tech. Well, there go my artisan small batch processors I was making.
Jeez, I hate tech, man.
No, the tech backlash is becoming, BuzzFeed had a big article about it last week. Guardian had a thing about Facebook this week. And I think there is a story to follow there about how, hey, guess what? Google's not small anymore. Apple's not an underdog anymore. Facebook's not an up-and-comer anymore. Like Amazon ain't a .com anymore. And Microsoft has been Microsoft for a long time. I don't think much perception has changed there, except maybe positive, right?
Yeah, no, they've swung the other direction.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're improving. They've become a new Microsoft. Like it is kind of
yeah. But it's becoming this thing of like, instead of like woo these young scrappy new companies are doing things that make our world better, to like these people are abusive, they're monopolistic, they're too big, they're the new Standard Oil. Like the tone has really changed.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. You guys are going to talk about that tomorrow. I'll have to tune in.
Well,
wait, that's jury tomorrow, right?
Yep.
Okay.
We can't hear you, Roger.
We hear you in our hearts.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now we can hear you in our ears.
It's like
I heard a loud thump in next door. I was trying to see what happened.
Oh, okay.
With my kid. The Nest.
Is everything okay? I mean,
well, she's crying, but no, she's not screaming. The Nest.
And just so viewers understand, she's also not alone.
No, my wife's with her.
Roger's wife is with her.
She's crying, but she's not screaming.
I don't know. I'm the only one in the house. She'll be fine. Makes her stronger.
Okay.
Okay.
The Nest big thing, Scott's Nest thing, the IRAA and the internet, the same old song and dance. Google Pixel Parts HTC, joining on about being first. The IRAA never changes their tune. IRAA Bug Whip Salesman. Amazon question mark. Alexa. And then,
nice.
Yeah, I got to do it slow. Can't set it off. The Geek Shout inherit the turf. Why? It's Fi. How much Overwatch could an Overwatch watch if an Overwatch could watch Overwatch?
Now that's just silly. I like it. I don't know, Roger. What do you think? What do you think the best one is?
I like the Overwatch one. How much Overwatch could an Overwatch watch if an Overwatch?
You don't think that's too long?
I
mean, I like it too, but
you just asked me. You didn't tell me about length.
Well, I assumed you would be considering that as the producer of the show.
Overwatch? No, those wounds run deep. Oh, run pretty deep. Bone conductor apply with thin. Blizzard blanketing the nation.
It's not a bad double meaning, but
we're not actually capped on length. But most people's displays will only show a few words, so you have to take that into important. And
they need to expand their vocabulary then.
Draw.
Who watched? Oh no, we do that. Overwatched by pro teams. Overwatch out, jocks. Overwatch out, jocks. It's our turn. Overwatch out, jocks.
Overwatch out, jocks. I get it. Okay.
Oh, I see. It. Over. Watch out,
Overwatch out,
jocks.
It's our turn.
I mean, the Nest big thing is winning.
You know what?
Yeah, I like that one. That's pretty fun. The thing is with things like Nest and stuff, there's really... I mean, what if the service goes down? Like, is there any way to... Like, I often think about this with my Nest cameras. Like, well, if it'd be nice if there was... I don't know.
Wait, so that seems to be a complaint about anything that's ever connected to the internet.
Yes.
And what if the service goes out? What if the electricity goes out?
Yeah, but electricity is not proprietary. I mean, someone will.
The internet's also not proprietary, so okay.
Well, next. No, but the Nest devices are they running on a?
Oh, you mean what if the company goes under?
Yeah,
but that's also true of any home security system too. Anything service oriented has that problem.
I know, and that's my. I would rather be able to cobble together something.
Well, you can. It's just kludgy.
Yeah, no, I know you can. That's what I'm saying. Like things with Nest, they're really cool. They're really shiny. They all come together in one box.
You're not talking about a connectivity outage. You're talking about the company just going under. Yeah, I mean Nest is owned by Alphabet, so it's a good bet.
It's a good bet.
It's a good bet.
I mean, it's no different than your cell phone service, though. Like what if your cell phone company goes out of business?
Yeah, at the end of the day, everything I do and is tied to some service that could go away.
If Samsung goes out of business, I'm rooting my phone. There. How you like them apples? Pears.
Well, you could root your Nest, too.
Life finds a way.
It's not like the Nest cameras are useless on, pieces, like they don't get bricked. Do they?
I mean, here I'll be honest.
I'm asking. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't either, really.
Just IP cameras where I could just over the web or over my phone easily look at an IP-based HTML5 stream from some generic camera without any.
I mean, this is the argument about cloud anything.
Yeah.
Cloud storage is the same way. Like I keep my files in Dropbox. What if Dropbox goes away? The trade-off is if you find
I'll
a company
back real quick.
Okay.
I gotta check on this real quick.
All right. Well, now I can't convince him of anything. He played the kid card.
How can you influence him when he's responding to children's screams?
I mean, what I was going to say to him though is like it's the trade-off is always like, okay, do I trust that the company will stay in business in exchange for the fact that I don't have to maintain the stuff myself?
Yeah.
They guarantee uptime. I've got somebody who can troubleshoot things when they go wrong. That's not me. That's your exchange of value there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, yeah, you can run storage off your home NAS. You can run your security off your home NAS. You can run your password server on KeePass for yourself. Like you can do all of it yourself. It just means that if anything goes wrong, there's no one else but you to fix it. And a lot of people are like, yeah, I'd rather have it that way, and that's perfectly reasonable.
That's great. I'm glad they can always do that. But then when you start talking to me like that, I'm like, no, I'll risk it. I think I want the service. I just want to use it, have it work, not think about it. I don't want to tinker everything I own.
Yeah.
And really, I want better, like the Chinese stuff, which is primarily what the cheaper end security systems are really poorly done in terms of translation and localization. And they just have a bunch of issues that are real kludgy, especially on the app side. And they don't get updated on those apps. Sometimes a new app comes out instead of updating the old one. You weren't even told and you don't know where to get it. Like it's just lame. So, and that includes Samsung. Their freaking camera stuff sucks.
Yeah, that's another interesting spin on this issue, isn't it? Like the companies that just stop updating something you use, like Google is the most famous, right? Or like Google didn't go out of business, but they're like, nah, we're not doing Google News anymore.
Yeah. I mean, Google, whatever heat they get for that, they kind of built that. They kind of made that bed a little bit, because whenever they started just like, we're bored with this, we'll do another thing. That set a precedent, made people nervous. And so now anytime you're like, Google Voice, I really like it, but I better not get too close because you never know, because they don't talk about it ever. Or burner or whatever. And it's too bad they have that reputation, because they are one of the most trusted companies in my life. But it doesn't mean they aren't going to get bored and dump something I like.
Yeah, it's funny when you mentioned the app that gets replaced and you don't realize it. I mean, this tells you how often I've been using the mobile app to update a Squarespace site, of which Cord Killers and Sword and Laser are Squarespace sites. But when I went to look at the 32-bit app list on my phone before iOS 11, I was like, what? Why wouldn't Squarespace have updated their app? And then, of course, I'm like, it hit me before I looked. I'm like, I bet they deprecated that app. And then I go to the App Store. Squarespace app that's on my phone is not even listed anymore. It's all these other new Squarespace apps. I'm like, I never updated.
I was about to tell you that I was surprised there weren't more updates today, because iOS 11 hits usually a bunch of apps, not the ones that are smart enough to do it early or whatever. And right as I said that, I did a refresh and I've got like 30 apps.
Oh my God. I guess her terrible twos were kind of delayed until she was over 2.5.
It's just now getting into it. So everything's okay, though.
Yeah, she rolled off the bed. Well, the bed's on the floor. Like, it's just a mattress on the floor. But she rolled off that and beamed her head against the floor. And then she got upset because she couldn't hold all her stuffed animals at the same time.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Because she's physically limited to 2 arms.
That's very twos. Why do I only have 2 arms? I scream about that every day myself.
So it's just very much like angry. Like, why did you give me feelings? Was I born with emotions?
Well, take out this emotion chip.
The Nest big thing. I take it.
Yes. The Nest big thing is going to be.
So when you have to wire it to your power, I'm curious to know, like, does that require like major drilling into your walls and stuff?
I wonder about the installation of that too. It does not sound like a DIY. Like the Nest thermostat is famous for like, it sounds complicated, but anybody can do it. This sounds like something you might need to call an electrician for.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to wire into your power and you don't know where you got to turn the circuit off.
Right.
Because you're going to electrocute yourself.
No, absolutely.
I've done it with my doorbell. I mean, it's not hard. It's just you got to be careful.
You just have to make sure to turn off the right breaker. I mean, it's the same thing with your thermostat. When you put in the Nest thermostat, you should turn off the breaker to your heater and air conditioner while you install it. But I don't know. Wiring it into power sounds a lot more direct somehow. I guess you're wiring the thermostat into power.
Well,
it's just already set up for you, though.
But you also need updated wiring, right? I mean, is it one of those things that won't work unless you have the grounded wire?
People are asking questions about why you wire it into power. Remember, this is an outdoor camera, so they want to make it difficult for someone to cut the power to it. They don't want to just have it plugged in, because then somebody could sneak up and unplug it, and you don't see anything.
If it's battery, they just take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it has to be more securely powered somehow.
Yeah, but most people, I mean, if you live in a suburban home that was put together in the last 20 years, I hate to break it to you, but your breaker box is on the outside of the house. It's like very easy to get to.
Mine's inside.
Yeah, mine's inside. Yeah.
No, mine's on the when they refit this place.
Well, that's because you live in the safest city on the planet.
My parents
just put the breakers outside.
Well, they do it for a reason, so the authorities can get to it. Like fire departments shut everything off.
Mine's like buried. Mine's really hard to get to. I have to get a shovel every time the breaker trips.
It's so the utility company can get to it.
No, I've never had a breaker outside in any place I've lived at. I'm trying to think, but
I've had them inside, but they were always older homes built before 1980.
Well, that may be why. Because I don't know that I've ever lived in a home that was newer than the 70s. Yeah, no.
Back when electricity was...
I'm thinking back. This house was built in the 40s. House in San Rafael was built in the 60s. House in Oakland, the condo in Oakland was in the 60s. The house in the Outer Sunset, the last one we lived in was probably 60s. The one before that was definitely 40s. The apartment building we lived in before that was 60s. House before that was Edwardian. The house before that was Victorian. And then in Austin, it's probably like mid-century, 20s. Like, yeah. I just haven't ever lived in a newer house. That's all.
Screw plug breakers. Oh, you mean fuses? BioCow?
Oh my gosh. I lived in one house that had fuses.
No, my last the apartment I moved from had fuses. I had to keep 4 different fuses on hand. About 3 of each one. What a pain in the ass. Don't turn on the toaster oven and the microwave at the same time.
Yeah, I remember buying fuses. Where was that? That must have been in Illinois, I think. One of the places.
I bought them at the Safeway up the block.
Yeah.
Which in San Francisco, half the homes use fuses.
Last time I lived in Illinois was 1992, so houses built in the 80s were pretty new at that point.
Look at you and your angled roof.
You and your indoor toilets.
Actually, one thing I really lament losing, and I really liked about San Francisco, was there's a unique set of home designs, even if they shared similar floor plans. Like people would, there would be like turrets or, like just they didn't all look the same. That's one thing I hate about subdivisions is they have like 5 houses that look very much alike, except that the garage is either on the left or the right of the house. This plan has a washer and dryer room upstairs.
I remember finally getting a house with a dishwasher when we moved in San Francisco.
First house didn't have one either. I hated it.
Oh my gosh.
We don't even use ours, really.
We use it. I don't use it all the time, but it's just nice to have it.
Well, you still have to pre-clean. I mean, I can't just leave like pieces of pie on the plate and stick it in. You know what I mean? You got to scrub it off. So if I'm going to do that, I'm near the sink anyway. I might as well just do it and wash it. Also, I come from a long line of washing dishes as a work.
That was one of my first jobs, was washing dishes.
What do they call it back? An old timer told me, back in my day, we used to pearl dive. Pearl diving. That's what they called it.
Pearl diving?
To give it a bit of glam.
Jeremy spoken. Oh, wait, that's different. That's a different.
Remember there was a period of time where every other alternative grunge band had someone that sounded just like Eddie Vedder.
Yep. That's what happens.
The trendsetter better.
Silverchair, Creed.
Yeah.
Well, folks, it's been lovely spending time with you again. We really mean that. So go out and spread the love and have a lovely Wednesday, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.